Can't go out tonight, I'm broke. You are financially broken. In British slang, you are skint. Can you spot me a fiver, mate? I'm completely skint.
Finally, we have two very visual, almost visceral idioms about money. If an item is astronomically expensive, you say it costs an arm and a leg. The implication being that the required sacrifice was tantamount to physical dismemberment.
Ouch.
Yeah. And if someone, perhaps a teenager, is spending too much, you remind them that money doesn't grow on trees. It requires the earn verb we discussed earlier. It requires labor, not just harvesting leaves.
Those visual metaphors are wonderful memory aids.
Hmm.
Okay, so we've got our finances in order. We know how to earn good money, how to bank it on the Italian bench, and how to split the bill without asking someone to borrow us cash.
A very successful day so far.
But there is a famous saying, famously coined by Benjamin Franklin during the Industrial Revolution, time is money.
Yes, the Industrial Revolution fundamentally changed how humanity viewed time. It shifted from being a natural cycle of seasons and daylight into a measurable, quantifiable commodity.
Which is why, in English, we talk about time using the exact same verbs we use for currency. We spend time, we waste time, we save time. We treat it like a physical substance we can hoard or lose.
Exactly. Since we just learned how to handle our finances, we need to know how to handle our time so we can have a good time doing it. But the mechanics of telling time in English can be weirdly, almost sadistically complicated for learners.
Let's guide you through the mechanics. First, the framework of the clock itself. English speakers juggle two systems, the 12-hour format with AM and PM, and the 24-hour format, often called military time.
While the 24-hour clock is used for train schedules and by the military to avoid ambiguity, for everyday casual conversation, almost everyone relies on the 12-hour clock.
Which is an ancient system going all the way back to the Egyptians and Mesopotamians using base 12 counting systems based on finger joints. So if it is exactly the top of the hour, you use the number plus the word o'clock. It's 3 o'clock. Now, what exactly is a clock? It sounds like an Irish last name.
It does, but it is literally a contraction of a very old Middle English phrase, of the clock. Back when mechanical clocks were first invented and placed in town squares, people had to distinguish between solar time on a sundial and mechanical time.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, so they would say, it is 3 o'clock. Over time, the lazy efficiency of language shrank it to o'clock. But what's interesting is that in rapid, casual speech today, native speakers often drop it completely and just say, it's 3.
It gets much trickier when minutes are involved. If the time is 7:15, you have options. You can read it simply, like a digital clock, 7:15. But the traditional analog style is what trips people up. 7:15. Quarter meaning 15 minutes, a quarter of the 60-minute circle. For 7:30, it's 7:30 or 7:30.
The logic here relies on the pass in 2 method. It is entirely visual, based on the position of the minute hand sweeping across the physical face of an analog clock. From minute 1 to minute 30, the time is physically moving away from, or has passed, the current hour. So you use past. 7:20 is 20 past 7.
But once you cross that 30-minute mark, the logic completely reverses.
Yeah.
You stop looking backward at the hour you just passed, and you start looking forward, anticipating the next hour.
Right, you switch gears.
From minute 31 to 59, you used to. So 7:45 is not usually 45 past 7. It is 7:45. 8:40 is 20 to 9.
Yeah.
You literally have to do a tiny bit of subtraction in your head before you speak.
It does require a cognitive hop. You have to subtract 40 from 60 to get the 20, and then add 1 to the hour to get 9. It takes practice to make it automatic. But honestly, the area where beginners truly experience linguistic despair isn't reading the clock. It is choosing the correct preposition to place in front of the time. The dreaded trio at, on, and in.
Oh, the preposition pyramid.
This is a nightmare for learners because in many languages like Spanish with N, you just use one highly flexible word for all of these scenarios. But in English, there is a very strict, unforgiving hierarchy. Exactly. I like to teach this using the visualization of an inverted pyramid. At the very bottom point, the sharpest, most precise tip of the pyramid is the word at. You use at for highly specific clock times and exact fleeting moments. I will meet you at 3:30. The train leaves at midnight. We wake up at sunrise.
Moving up the inverted pyramid, the area gets a little wider. We're no longer looking at an exact fleeting minute. We're looking at a block of 24 hours, a single day. For days and dates, you must use on. I will see you on Monday. My birthday is on March 15th. We are having a party on Friday night.
And finally, at the very top, the widest, broadest base of the inverted pyramid is in. You use in For large, expansive containers of time, months, years, seasons, decades, centuries, and general parts of the day. My birthday is in January. The Olympics are in 2025. We go swimming in the summer. I drink coffee in the morning.
Now, I want to stop here because I always point out to learners how profoundly weird this is. Think about the words we were just using: at, on, in. English uses physical, spatial words to describe invisible time.
Yes.
You are in a box. You put a glass on a table, you stand at the door, and we effortlessly map those physical spaces onto the calendar. Why do we do this?
This is one of my favorite topics in cognitive linguistics. It traces back to theories by linguists like George Lakoff regarding conceptual metaphors. Time is an abstract, invisible concept. Human brains did not evolve a specific sensory organ to perceive time.
Right, we can't touch it or see it.
Exactly. We evolved to navigate physical space, to walk around rocks, climb trees, hide in caves. So when early humans needed to communicate complex concepts about time, they simply hijacked the spatial mapping hardware already built into their brains.
So we treat time as if it were a physical landscape we are walking through.
Precisely. When you say at 3:30, you are pointing to a specific tiny dot on a timeline, just like pointing at a door. When you say on Monday, you are placing an event onto the flat 2D surface of a calendar square, just like putting a book on a table. And when you say in 2025, you are conceptually placing the event inside a massive 3D boundary of 365 days, like putting something in a box. You are moving conceptually from a point to a surface to a container.
That spatial logic makes it so much easier to remember. It's not just a random grammar rule to torture students. It's a reflection of how the human brain visualizes reality. From the point to the surface to the container. At, on, in. Okay, let's look at another highly confusing pair of time expressions that deal with measurement: for versus since.
Both of these words describe a situation that began in the past and continues up to the present moment, but they act as entirely different grammatical tools. For is used to measure the total length, the duration of the time. It answers the question, how long?
Like using a tape measure.
Exactly. You can use it with minutes, days, years. I've lived here for 5 years. We waited for 20 minutes. Or, tying it back to our earlier lesson on adjectives, we waited for a good 20 minutes.
So for is a measuring tape. It measures the length of the event. What about since? Let me play the bad student again. I have waited here since 20 minutes.
And native speakers will instantly cringe because since cannot be used with a duration. Since is the pushpin on the calendar. It marks the specific, fixed starting point of the action. It answers the question, from when?
The pushpin, I like that.
You must use it with a specific moment, date, or event in the past. I have lived here since 2020. We have been friends since college.
So you would say, I have worked here for 6 months using the measuring tape, or I have worked here since September, dropping the pushpin on the calendar. They both describe the exact same physical reality, just using a different cognitive tool.
Exactly. And just to round out the time section, let's look at a few colorful idioms that native speakers use to describe the passage of time. If you have nothing to do, you are waiting for a train, and you play a game on your phone, you say you are killing time.
Which is such a violent metaphor. Why are we murdering time?
It goes back to that Industrial Revolution mindset we mentioned. Time is a valuable resource. If you aren't using it productively, you are actively destroying its potential. You are killing it.
Wow. Next, if you arrive at the very last possible second before it is too late, you arrive in the nick of time. What is a nick?
A nick historically referred to a small notch or cut made on a wooden tally stick, which was an ancient way of keeping records or counting. Arriving in the nick meant arriving exactly at the precise notch or mark of the deadline.
And finally, when you're enjoying yourself and time seems to pass very quickly, you say, time flies. Time flies when you're having a good time.
Which is a direct translation of the Latin phrase tempus fugit, showing how deeply classical languages still influence our everyday English.
Okay, let's follow the logical thread of a normal day. We spend our time to earn our good money. But what exactly are we spending that time doing? Every day, billions of people wake up, drink coffee in the morning, and leave the house to go to where? Are they going to their job? Or are they going to work?
This brings us to a massive fundamental point of confusion for English learners. In many other languages, the concepts of job and work are translated into a single identical word. But in English, they have a distinct, slightly rigid, and deeply cultural relationship.
Let's break down the mechanics. First, the word job, J-O-B. Grammatically, job is always 100% of the time a noun. It is a specific, countable thing. You can have one job, two jobs. It refers to the specific official occupation a person performs in order to earn a living to get money.
Right. It is synonymous with your professional title. You can say, Sam got a job as a professor at Harvard University, or I'm looking for a new job. It is the box you fit into in the economic machine.
Now compare that to work. W-O-R-K. Work is much broader and grammatically much more flexible. First of all, it can be a noun, but it can also be a verb. I work hard. And work refers to any physical or mental activity that takes effort. It doesn't matter if you get paid for it or not.
Etymologically, work comes from ancient Proto-Indo-European roots, related to the Greek word ergon, meaning energy or action. It is a noble, ancient concept. Job, on the other hand, has a much shadier history. In 16th century slang, a job often referred to a petty task, or sometimes even a small petty crime.
Wait, a crime?
Yes, it only evolved into meaning regular employment much later.
So work is the ancient energy you expend, and job is the modern bureaucratic box you do it in. Let me test this with a scenario. A university student, let's call her Mira, is studying for her final exams. She is sweating over textbooks at 2 a.m. Does she have a job?
No. Mira does not receive a salary for studying. It is not her profession, therefore she does not have a job studying. But the studying requires immense, draining mental effort, so she is absolutely doing work. She is expending ergon.
Or think about doing chores around the house, cleaning the kitchen, mowing the lawn. It is hard work. But unless someone is paying you a salary to do it, it is not your job.
So the golden rule to synthesize this difference and lodge it in your memory is this. All jobs are work, but not all work is a job. If you have a job as an accountant, you have to work. You have to expend effort. But if you are working your garden on Sunday, you do not have a job as a gardener.
That is the perfect way to remember it. All jobs are work, but not all work is a job. Now, we promised to anchor everything back to our central theme word, good. And there is a very specific, slightly baffling British idiom that combines these words perfectly. It's a good job.
Yes, and this is highly confusing if you attempt to apply the literal definitions we just painstakingly discussed. In British English, if someone says, it's a good job, they are almost never talking about a high-paying profession or a prestigious career.
Let me give an example.
Right.
You're walking in London, the sky turns black and it starts pouring rain. You pull a massive umbrella out of your bag, and your British friend looks at you and says, well, it's a good job you brought an umbrella. Wait, what? Bringing an umbrella is not a profession. It doesn't pay a salary. Why is it a good job?
It is a fascinating idiom. It essentially means it is a highly fortunate situation, or it is a lucky thing. It has completely, entirely detached from the definition of occupation. It harks back to that older, vaguer sense of job, just meaning an event or occurrence. So a good job just means a good occurrence.
English is so messy. I love it. For our listeners, here is the practical advice to avoid sounding stiff or unnatural during your daily grind. When you meet someone at a party, you ask, what is your job? To find out their profession. But in the morning, you say, I am going to work. To describe the location or the act of starting your daily tasks, do not say, I am going to my job. It sounds robotic. You have a job, but you go to work.
It is about the nuance of the daily routine. You apply for a job, you interview for a job, you quit a job, but Monday to Friday at 8 a.m., you wake up and you go to work.
Okay, we are entering the home stretch of our everyday survival kit. We've covered a lot of ground. But honestly, what is the point of earning good money at your job, managing your time perfectly with the right prepositions, and working hard if you don't occasionally get to stop and enjoy the absolute best parts of being human? We are talking of enjoying a good meal with good friends.
The pinnacle of the human experience. And the vocabulary surrounding food and friendship is rich with history. Let's start with the culinary journey.
If you are eating out at a restaurant celebrating a promotion at your job, you need to know the stages of the meal. The meal is divided into what we call courses, which simply means a part of the meal served at one time.
The terminology for these courses is heavily influenced by the Norman conquest of England in 1066, when French became the language of the English aristocracy. This is why our fancy food words are often French, while our basic farming words are Germanic.
Right, so you usually start the meal with an appetizer, from the Latin root meaning to desire. This is a small dish served before the main event to stimulate your appetite, your desire to eat, like spring rolls or a small salad.
Following the appetizer is the main event. And depending on where you are in the world, this terminology experiences a major geographical shift. In the UK, it is simply and logically called the main course, but in the US, it is often called the entree.
I have always wondered about this. Entree literally means entrance in French. It sounds like it should be the appetizer, the entrance to the meal. Why do Americans call the huge steak the entree?
It is a hilarious historical linguistic accident. In classic French dining centuries ago, the entree was indeed a smaller dish served before a massive roast. But over time, the massive roast fell out of fashion in America, the menu shrank, but Americans kept the fancy French word entree and just applied it to whatever the biggest plate of food on the table was. It's a linguistic fossil.
I love that. And then finally, the sweet food eaten at the very end of the meal is the dessert.
Also French, from desservir, meaning to clear the table. You eat the dessert after the main plates have been cleared away.
Now, how do you describe this food? If you like it, you can simply say it is good, relying on our trusty anchor word. But to be more specific and fluent, you want to upgrade your adjectives. You can say it is delicious or tasty. If it is scientifically healthy for your biology, you say it is nutritious.
And if the food is a failure, if it lacks any flavor whatsoever, you don't just call it bad. The precise adjectives are bland or tasteless. Vegetarian food can sometimes be a bit tasteless if it isn't spiced properly.
There is also a very important distinction to make between two nouns, diet and cuisine. This is a classic false friend for many learners who assume diet only means a restrictive weight loss program where you only eat celery.
The etymology here perfectly explains the difference. Diet comes from the ancient Greek word dieta, which translates to a way of life. It is profoundly personal and biological. In everyday English, your diet is simply the sum total of all the foods you habitually eat on a daily basis. A vegetarian diet rich in protein is best. It's your biological intake.
While cuisine comes from the Latin cocer, meaning to cook, filtered through French. So cuisine refers to a specific geographic region's cultural, artistic, and traditional style of cooking. There's more to Italian cuisine than just pizza and pasta.
Exactly. You eat your personal biological diet every day. You go to a restaurant to enjoy a cultural cuisine.
And who do you enjoy that cuisine with? Your friends. The concept of friendship in English has its own distinct hierarchy of vocabulary. At its core, a friend is simply defined as a person you know well and like who is not a member of your family.
But the collocations, the specific adjectives that naturally pair with the noun friend, tell a much deeper sociological story about human relationships. English categorizes the depth of the bond. You have a close friend or a dear friend, someone you trust deeply, someone you would confess a secret to. You have a childhood friend, someone you've known since you were kids, implying a shared history rather than just current proximity.
And connecting it right back to our starting point, our anchor word, we have the phrase, a good friend. When you say good friend, the adjective lens of good is implying someone who is consistently kind, loyal, and helpful. If you say he is a good friend, you are describing his positive moral qualities of loyalty and support.
There's also a very specific, somewhat defensive idiom that involves our word good, the phrase just good friends. This is almost exclusively used in a social context to clarify that two people are not having a romantic or sexual relationship.
Right. If two coworkers are seen having an intimate dinner together and office rumors start flying, one might quickly say, oh, no, we aren't dating. We are just good friends. It is the ultimate platonic shield.
And there is a classic, centuries-old proverb that is beautiful for learners to internalize. A friend in need is a friend indeed.
I've heard this my whole life, but let's break down the mechanics. What does it actually mean?
It uses a play on words. It means a friend who offers you help when you are in need, when things are difficult, when you are broke or skint is a true, genuine friend. And indeed, friend. It tests the validity of the friendship against the crucible of hardship.
So what does this all mean? Why have we taken you, the listener, on this massive, sprawling 60-minute journey from the grammar of adjectives to the Italian benches of banking to the spatial pyramids of time to the difference between jobs and work, all the way to French desserts and platonic friends?
Because as a beginner, it is so incredibly easy to get lost in the dry weeds of textbook grammar rules and alphabetical vocabulary lists that feel utterly disconnected from human reality.
We want to show you the hidden wiring of the language. Mastering these interconnected vocabularies, understanding the history and the psychology behind why we say these things, gives you the ultimate, indestructible toolkit for daily English survival. You don't need to know every obscure word in the dictionary. You need to know how the most common words, like good, interact dynamically with your actual messy life.
Let's do a quick recap of the journey you've just taken. You have mastered the dual identity of the word good. You now know it acts as a stylish accessory lens describing a noun, like a good book, but it also acts as a standalone noun, meaning a tangible advantage, like it's for your own good. You learned that for good means forever.
You learn to navigate the psychology of everyday finances, recognizing that earning good money just means an ample quantity, not a moral victory. You know to deposit at the bank, withdraw from the hole in the wall, and most importantly, you know exactly why you must avoid the deadly borrow me trap. It is always lend me or can I borrow, matching the vector of the transaction.
You conquered the cognitive mechanics of time, learning that we hijack physical space in our brains to move from the specific point at 3 o'clock to the flat surface on Monday to the 3D container in January. You know that for is a measuring tape for duration, while since drops a pushpin on a starting point.
You learn to differentiate the daily grind, understanding the noble ancient effort of work versus the specific official box of a job. All jobs are work, but not all work is a job.
And finally, you learned how to describe the enjoyment of the fruits of that labor, moving from appetizers to